Okay, if you're
It's
watching this
lit.
now, look at this. We've got Don. Uh, we've got Donald Perdomo, and we've got Sean Benzie over here on the Master Chats for Latte Art. Coffee Fest Latte Art Competition Master Chats are all about featuring our awesome free pour latte artists that are very accomplished, and these two definitely are. Always impressed with what you all pour. It's really an honor to have you on the show, so I'm excited to get to know you better, and I'm sure everyone else is as well. So I gotta start though by thanking our awesome sponsors of this particular interview and the Master Chat series. Of course, Slow Pour. You can see their logo right here below me. Right here is where's my hand right there. Slow Pour, we would really like to thank them. They just support the barista community, and they're supporting today's Master Chat, and they've been all about building a community around the craft of latte art for years, really. And beyond supplying the best craft or latte art pitchers out there, and like I said the last time, I see people in most of the time when I see competitors, I see slow pour pitchers. They also have a wide selection and the latest and greatest gear to fuel your coffee passion. And today's guests get the newest Origami Air S. They also get Chestnut C2 Max Grinder and
You're
an Origami Barrel Flavor Cup to help them stay caffeinated on the road to Coffee Fest New York. Slow Pour wishes all of you the best of luck in New York City. And also, of course, the Barista Series here. Who doesn't love the Barista Series? Performance Beverages. I like that title, Performance Beverages, because they perform, right? They make latte art easy for plant-based customers, and we all love using the Barista Series, so I really do like them, and I always recommend them to my clients, and I love seeing people pour with Barista Series. They are super supporters of baristas. So thanks, everybody, and also Coffee Fest. No duh. So let's get to the interview time. Well, again, welcome, Donald and Sean. Great to have you in this interview. How are you doing today?
here. We're chilling.
Good.
Beautiful. It's a rainy
So
evening
good.
in New York, but doing
Yeah,
good. Thank you.
that's awesome. So let's do this. Let's start with a question. We got to get to know you a little bit. So what we're going to do is start off kind of like we did with the last one, which is I want to talk about how you got hooked on latte art and what it is that drew you into the world of coffee in general. But where did latte art come into that for you? And I guess Donald, we'll start with you in your story of where you caught the bug for pouring.
All right, cool. So I started working in coffee in about 2003, but I didn't get my first specialty coffee shop job until about 2011. And when I started at the place, the owner of the shop was a former Ultimate Barista competition competitor. He had won the competition like 5 or 6 times between 2008 and 2012 or 13. And so I started at this job and there were all these trophies and pictures from his competition. And so that immediately was like, what is this? And so that job also really stressed the importance of coffee education because they were a coffee roaster. So cuppings were mandatory once a month. And, about 3, 4 months into working behind the bar or working on the floor, you would start your espresso training.
Mm-hmm.
And with that came milk training. And then, I saw my first Rosetta and I was like, what is this? I had worked in coffee at this point for like 7, 8 years in a mom and pop shop, and going into that specialty coffee atmosphere was just completely different. I was like, you got coffee siphons, you have Japanese style slow coffee drippers on the wall, people doing latte art, and that's immediately what kind of like drew me in. Um, but this level of competition now, it was another 7, 8 years. I mean, I didn't meet the guys in Espresso State of Mind until about the summer of 2019. Went to my first throwdown, which was an all matcha throwdown that summer at a shop in Brooklyn, and I go up against Prof first round. I get smoked, and that night, I walked in and I had followed all these people on Instagram up to that point. I met Hawkeye, I met M, I met Prof. I was greeted at the door with the guys from Espresso State of Mind, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we know who you are. Come on in, come join the fun." And literally from that moment, I was just like, I need to do this more. I'm in a room with people who are down to talk about coffee, who are down to talk about latte art, and just spend the night like having a ball talking about this thing that otherwise would kind of seem silly with the other parts of my world. So
Hmm.
that kind of drew me in, and I'm like, all right, this is the life. So that kind of got me hooked.
Wow, that's really intense. That's awesome. It's what a
Yeah,
warm welcome to the community.
yeah, for sure. It wasn't
Sean,
fair that they put me up against Prof for my first start round, but
yeah, that
you know,
that kind of sucks for you.
yeah.
Happens to us all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, what about you?
Well, my first job right out of high school was Starbucks. I lived in Seattle land, so it was pretty the norm over there. And then I decided I was pursuing my dreams in musical theater, so I flew to New York and went to school. And then I got out of school and I was like, I need to make rent for a while. So I got a job at a coffee shop because I was like, I work at Starbucks. I know how to do this. Big surprise, didn't know anything. But I just have this thing about me where I'm very competitive and I need to be the very best at what I'm doing. As to all of this beautiful, amazing potential to create art in so many different ways was amazing for me. And I think I latched onto latte art pretty quickly because it was the easiest way to make art. Dialing in takes a lot of time to perfect in a way. So latte art was just the thing that made me feel good about myself at work. And I really love to see my progress and be around people that were competing. I worked at Hungry Ghost, where at the time there were these like rec coffee events, the TNTs in New York, and Yasya and Ada and Luce, they all were just like champions at the time. So it was really cool to work with them and see them, put like 15 stacks into a 10-ounce latte. It was pretty impressive. And uh, from there, I casually started to meet more people in the New York community, like Prof. I once visited Bluestone and I saw Prof and he was like, let me pour something for you. And he like split a shot between like 2 ounces and he poured like a beautiful winged tulip and a swan. And he was like, you go. And I poured like a little 4-tier tulip and he was like, yeah, that's cute. And it was a really great moment for me to, see the potential. So, um, eventually I started going to competitions just like Donnie and I met the folks from Espresso State of Mind and they're just the most welcoming folks. They're just the most welcoming people. They love to add to the family. And so I was very quickly added to the family. And then I met Emily and I was like, okay, I got to stay here like a little longer, I guess. Um, so yeah, it all just kind of like happened. It feels like I just fell into it in the most pleasant way possible.
Hmm. There's a theme here around community and just being able to get a little bit more momentum to your journey in latte art and maybe even your careers through meeting the right people and the people that would welcome you in to try your hand, even though you may not be as good as people that you look up to. You're still, welcomed to make mistakes and get better. And I'm sure that, just by being in the presence of other people who are encouraging people to get better and better, that's going to make you better, right? And you've both done well in the competition. You've both been in the top three, and you've both just gone against some pretty stiff competition and had moments where it was well stressful. Getting into latte art itself is great and it's a stress of its own, but you're on your bar, you're with friends, you're having a drink or whatever at a throwdown. But then when you're, on the stage and there's cameras and it's official and all that stuff, it's a different layer of difficulty and stress to that. Um, I guess a good question to follow up with your stories of getting into latte art is once you started to enter into like the competition area of latte art, how did that change the way you perceived it or did it at all?
Well, for me, once I started getting into it, I definitely was exposed to how good everybody like really truly was. Um, because like you said, this whole community thing, I mean, you're pulled in almost immediately, and the guys are like, yeah, come to the next event and come to the next event. And you sit and have these conversations with people over the course of a night, and you learn so much. And so I'd go to a competition, any Thursday night throwdown, and I'd pick up this information. I'd go and practice at the shop the next day, and I feel like I would level up just with this little conversation and trying to push it. Um, and then I'd see somebody post something, and I would look at this, and I'd be like, what is this monstrosity? How do they fit all of this in a 6.5 ounce cup? Where is their brain? How are they flowing? All of this work. And it made me realize that there's a lot of time and effort and a lot of nuance that goes into the very small details of like figuring out the muscle movements of making those super fine line tulips or something. And that is a lot of time, wait, like spilled milk, a lot, like it's just hours and hours. And so it just put into my head that if it was something I really wanted to get better at, I was gonna have to put in a lot of time, like with anything. But I think that for me personally, having what I felt like was 10 plus years already working behind a bar, I'm like, oh, cool, this is just another thing. And it's like, no, this is a whole nother thing. Um,
Mm,
yeah.
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it takes a lot of practice for sure. And I think for me, within that practice is like building awareness for every single movement that I do and, every single second that I can skim off if we're talking about Coffee Fest. Every single motion and like the flow, because when you're there and you're under pressure, and whether it's at Coffee Fest or just a throwdown, you're in a new environment, you're in a new city or on a new bar, and there's so many outside factors. And I feel like the thing that has helped me the most is come up with a plan, like a ground plan for exactly where my hands go at what time, and like focusing on like breathing and like being in the moment. And if I'm
Right.
if I'm at a throwdown and like on a different bar, just kind of gauging and seeing, okay, what is this machine? What is the grinder? How is it working? Who is pulling the shots? Am I pulling the shots? How are the steam wands? Are they equal? Are they not? Just really getting a gauge for the environment and what is happening and having as much control and awareness as possible so that you eliminate all of those things that could go wrong as much as possible.
Yeah, so the dedication and pushing past boundaries and getting more disciplined, of course, all of that makes you a better professional in general. And even in the midst of all that planning, though, nerves come up and things happen. We do things that we just watch our hands do it and we don't know why they do it. And there's challenges that come up, when we're fearful for our life in competition. So I'm curious about in particular challenges that come up in the time that you've been pursuing competition that you've had to overcome personally that have been significant enough that they've kind of not just changed your perspective on how you approach the competition, but maybe even how you approach your career.
I definitely think that competing at Coffee Fest and performing on that stage, one of the hardest things for me to get over are the nerves, for sure. Um, it was really apparent when I first started working with ESOM and like really practicing latte art behind the bar, that it was something I was getting better at. And I remember one day we did an espresso training with our one of the head trainers at our roaster. She came in
Hmm.
and we ran every one of the junior baristas through it, and then I went up and just did a quick example of a latte, and I shook the entire time I poured in front of this person at my shop behind my bar. And that is how I feel when I get in that space for Coffee Fest. Immediately, my heart is pounding, my forearms go stiff. The ability to drop a wing just completely escapes. And so over, but then there are things in Coffee Fest like the service aspect of presenting a pour. You know, making sure that you clean your cup. It wasn't until I competed at a throwdown at Counterculture where they were critiquing the cups and how much it was smudged that it made me start thinking about holding the cup differently when I was making drinks during service, making sure my hands never touched the lip where a customer's lips were going to touch. Like it's these very little things about presentation that goes super far. You know, we love doing latte art in this competition space, and it's great. In the cafe setting where you're making service pours for people, I don't know how many people have gone back to serving drinks in mugs in house post pandemic, but I've been lucky enough to work in two different shops where it's been pretty consistent. And so doing the Coffee Fest circuit has made me think about how I present these to people, in how quickly I present this without jeopardizing flavor and the actual overall drink. It's different at Coffee Fest because you're just judging the visual aspect of the drink, but it's made me think about service a lot more in presentation because latte art can be that really nice garnish. I always tell people when they're like, "Oh, it's too good to drink." I'm like, "Good food should be pretty, and that's what your coffee should be."
Yeah.
And so in that aspect, I think Coffee Fest has definitely made me be more aware of that little part of the experience for the customer, for the person who's staying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Donnie. For me,
Yeah.
for me, I feel my biggest challenges are, Coffee Fest is a very stressful environment, and I get into flight or fight or freeze very easily, and it's usually freeze. And I feel like, for me personally, there's a lot of outside factors of this, of like anxiety and such. The modern world, everybody has anxiety, but I feel like the two biggest ways that I can overcome and help like my mind state is literally state of mind, like preparing myself in the morning and having a good breakfast and having very little coffee and doing maybe some meditation. I don't know. It sounds very woo woo, but anything that you can really get yourself to like ground yourself and get yourself to believe that you are going to be amazing, because it's really a huge part of just your mindset and how you go into it.
Hmm.
And then the other one is just preparation. Like you can never over prepare, and you should never stay complacent. You should always be hungry, and you should always be practicing and striving to be better and striving to be consistent.
Yeah, that's well put. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last talk we did, but there's that saying, I guess it was originally a Greek saying, summed up it was that we don't rise to the level of our ideals, we fall to the level of our systems. And you
Mm.
could say your preparation, your attention to detail, your habits that you create in the off season kind of create who you are when the pressure is on, because who you are is like stripped down to its essence when you're behind the machine, and there's no amount of shots behind the curtain and you know the tips and tricks and the techniques, they all work, but then you're left alone with who you've constructed off
Mm.
camera, off stage.
Yeah.
And it's very true, yeah. And There's lots of healthier ways to deal with it than, taking some Maker's Mark in your backpack. Uh,
Although not the worst way,
it's
to get ready
It's
for your
not the
round.
worst way.
but the lack of coffee is also significant. Wow, that's a great tip right there. Yeah, having little coffee.
Oh,
Yeah, a big
100%.
breakfast and very little coffee.
Mm,
Yeah, I feel
The
like
shakes are real.
we for Portland Coffee Fest, Sean went to Proud Mary's to grab coffee, and I didn't have any of my coffee until after my round. My breakfast and my coffee were sitting on a seat waiting because
hmm
I knew from when we competed in San Antonio, like that morning I had so much coffee and I won my first round, but by chance, the adrenaline was rushing super hard. So I definitely think watching your coffee consumption before your round is so important. It's really hard because you're at a coffee show, but it definitely helps to maybe wait it out until after noon.
hmm
Yeah, I lost that round after we went to get coffee at Proud Mary's. That was I lost.
Proud Mary.
So there you go. It was worth it. Their coffee is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I was going to follow that up with saying that if you think that this competition is a microcosm of a bar, in a sense, and we've all been there when we get hangry and we get tired. We've had way too many dial-in shots, and customers just start to look really bad to us. You know what I mean? Like you
yeah.
start to your nerves, everything gets on your nerves, and you don't realize it, but it's because you've just had like a raspberry oat bar and 6 shots that you know this is your life now. You're hating people, and then you get a burrito after work. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
So maybe the theme is get the burrito before you become terrible. You know?
Yeah, 100%. I feel that.
Yeah.
Or,
Um.
maybe for everyone who's dialing in, like opt in to have that croissant because it's ready. Just have it while you're dialing in. You'll be
hmm
such a better human being at 9 a.m.
Yeah. We need a burrito sponsor for Latte Art. We'll get that.
The
Um.
bear
Yeah. Burrito and
burrito.
coffee fest.
Yes. Let's do this. I would love to know from both of you, people listening to this during the interview right now or after the interview. Um, they need to know how to take the first steps into latte arts, into maybe becoming a better barista, but specifically if they see latte artists, they see Coffee Fest and the competitions, and they're you years ago looking at this. What advice would you give them based on what you've learned through your work and through competition?
Cool. Um, I would definitely say, especially now, we live in such a good time for information and educational resources. And I say this specifically because I started in specialty coffee in 2011, and what was on YouTube and what was available on VHS or DVD uh, was not on the level of what's available now for a 15-second reel on Instagram. And so even the last 6 months of my life like has just been analyzing watching people that I admire very much. um, but I think for anyone who's looking at the space from the outside, like a lot of these people who are pouring these fantastic coffees and these pours, like they are very much you and they've sat in that same space wanting to get better and seeing this thing that looks impossible to do and just reach out. Social media is such an incredible tool for being able to directly interact with people that you want to. And a lot of these people will help you out. A lot of these people have helped me out, and I've come up so much in this community because every single person that I talked to and every single person that pulled me aside to say, let's pour a latte, uh, was just about it. They know what it's like to sit in that same place and want to be better. And I feel like our community recognizes that and knows that we will grow significantly as long as we keep bringing each other up. So, like, if you're looking at this from the outside, hit up anyone. They are happy to guide you, to point you in the right direction if they can't offer you what they can, because there's so many people in this space who are incredible and are down, you know. And I think this is a time to be able to just do that, you know.
I love that.
Yeah, 100% what Donnie said. Reach out to anybody and everybody on Instagram. Send them pictures. Half of them, if not more, will respond to you. Um, I have like three things to say about this. Oh, and I just forgot them all. Um, one, um, one is be kind to yourself. Oh, okay, wait. So this is a craft, right? And so this will come with time. Like with crafts, like any other craft, it will take a lot of practice and a lot of motivation and ambition and just effort and practice. So be patient and know that it will take a while, but it will get there. I mean, Donnie is one of the best cases of like somebody just getting good so fast. Like Donnie just like jumped, and just because he really put in the effort, and it was beautiful to see. Um, but it will take some time, so be patient and also be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself because progress is not linear. And some days you will pour fantastically, and then the next day you won't even be able to get a heart in the cup. And that's okay. Every day everyone has bad days, and that doesn't mean you're any less of a latte artist. It just means that tomorrow's a brand new day. And then my last piece of advice is take videos of yourself. This is the best way to really see what you're doing and be able to break down exactly what is happening without having to like be aware for 30 seconds and over. Right, because it's so time sensitive that there's really no way to self criticize than to rewatch, like do the replay, right? Replay your
Yeah.
pour, do it in slow motion, and compare it
Hmm.
to all of the great latte artists on Instagram. See how theirs is pouring compared to yours, and just go from there.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Um, on that note, specifically, like watching is very underrated. Watching other people and watching it in slow motion, and your brain is picking up so many details that you're not even aware of. You're internalizing it, you're visualizing it, and your hands kind of follow where your mind is fixated on. And so, in that moment where
Mm-hmm.
you're stripped down to your essence, you got to be connected to your hands and doing exactly what you're talking about, Sean. And I love. I don't know if this is going to show up the way I want it to on the screen here. Like you said, the nonlinear progress. You know, it just
Yes.
Yeah.
you reach like you go up and
Dude,
down. You might be in the valley,
Mm-hmm.
but
1,000,000%. It's
yeah.
You.
crazy. I feel like, Sean, I resonate with that so heavy because I feel like there are it never goes longer than like 6 or 7 days, maybe like a period of a week where I feel like I'm on fire. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm just like, wow, I'm
Yes.
unstoppable. I'm gonna show up at Coffee Fest. I'm gonna rip it. Like I've never poured this good. And then the next week, it's like I struggle to drop a simple three stack, and it's really hard to get past that because at this point you've built in this expectation of what you're capable of doing without recognizing
Mm-hmm.
that like, yo, some days you're gonna be off, and like it won't always be this perfect streak.
Hmm.
So I really appreciate that so much because I think that is one of the truest things I've heard is that progress is definitely not linear. Your picture was proper, Chris, for real.
Yes.
I'm a bit of
I
an
would just
artist.
add in a bit of like, I would add in some plateaus too, because sometimes you just like stay in the same place and you just like
Mm-hmm.
don't get better, but you don't get worse, but you're not any better, and you're just like, well, I guess I'm here forever.
Well, because it's
Oh yeah.
comfortable, right? You're like, well, I know for sure
Yes.
that I can rip this out and not, I might not feel great about it, but I won't beat myself up about dropping this, right?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
One as a judge for so long, and past competitor myself, I think the of defeat that you could let get into your mind in those moments could really sour you, not just to latte art, but just to like community competition and all this other stuff. So going in there also with the idea that this doesn't define me. You're more than a latte artist. Uh, you have other things going on in life, and you have to have a healthy perspective of that. And other competitions like in USBC, I've seen people just break down weeping like such bitter tears in a way that showed, and I knew it was because they had not seen their family in so long because they've been practicing so much and it consumed them. So it's like you pursue this, you just make sure you keep it, take it with a grain of salt. And those ups and downs will really help you stay in touch with the things that are around you that still matter, even though we're fascinated by latte art and it really draws you in.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I feel that. I definitely like I could release a 5 minute compilation of videos of me getting to the end of a pour and then literally taking my cup and my pitcher and slamming them into a sink. And
Yes.
really, really like wanting this first place, um, but more as like a reason to like justify the amount of time and effort that I put in, and to tell myself like that all of this has been worth it and that you are worth the work that you put in. But it's like this is not that. Latte Art World Championship Open is an opportunity for people to showcase their talents and be among a collective of people who share the same interests and share this profession. But it is not a defining moment in your profession, whether or not you win or lose. And it doesn't dictate whether or not you are a service professional and a coffee professional through and through.
Hmm.
And that is something that has been a difficult thing for me to navigate personally, um, because I'm like, oh, I want it so bad, but I'm like, it doesn't mean that you're less of a barista for not getting it. But it's like, oh, but it would be so cool, and like I put in all this time training, but it's like, but again, dude, it's fine. Like you're around all of these people who are ill and who put in the same amount, if not more time, you know, and they don't let it define them who they are. They're still incredible service professionals at the end of this. And so I think that is something to remind yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're going to be the same person you were before and after you won the trophy. You're
Yeah.
just going to be a little richer, but you're going to have a little more
Yeah.
money, but that's. And also, there's always another one in 4 months. Like, it's a game, and it's just so fun because it keeps going. It always resets, like you KO, and then in 4 months you, what's it called in like video games where you like reappear. Um,
You respawn.
you know, yes, yes, you respawn. We all respawn every 4 months.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh. That's great. Well, speaking of great latte artists and ill people in the healthiest way, I'm glad that you I'm glad that you both were able to join us on this interview. Donnie and Sean, this was fantastic to get to know you a little bit better, and you've definitely given some insights that I think people listening to this can use in their own journeys. And I'm always excited to see you all at Coffee Fest, and best of luck to you in New York.
Absolutely. Dude, thank you so much for having us. Thank you to
Yeah.
Slow Pour Supply. Thank you to Barista
Hmm.
Series. It's been a pleasure. We are always happy. If you're watching this, if you watch this in the future, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to myself or Sean. We love what we do. We love promoting and helping the community. And like, we only get better if we all get better. So, like, for real, please reach out, say what up, say ear, you know?
And you see here
Yep, I'm
their
excited.
Instagram accounts right here on our screen below. And yes, definitely thank you to Barista Series and Slow Pour. Thank you, Donnie and Sean. And we'll see you all in Coffee Fest.
Ear, peace.